When a person dies, the living think the page has been turned and the story has ended. They bury the body, cover it with earth, and return to their homes, certain that silence now reigns supreme. But something refuses to be buried. Voices that linger like echoes in the corridors, haunting those who remain, as if to say that death is not an end, but another door, a door that doesn't close properly. In every civilization, country, and era, there are recorded testimonies, official reports, voices that emerged from behind the shroud, not like old wives' tales or folk legends, but as realities for which science has found no explanation. These are not stories, they are nightmares recorded in the archives. Berlin, winter 1993. Helga sat on the sofa in her small apartment, clutching the scarf of her daughter, Catherine, who had died in a car accident. The night was cold, the wind whipping against the windows. Suddenly, the phone rang. The ringtone echoed like stabbings in her chest, but she didn't dare pick it up. She let it ring, and the answering machine picked up. Seconds later, her blood ran cold. It was Catherine's own voice, trembling and clear. "Mama, don't cry. I'm not gone. Hear me." Helga collapsed to the floor, pressing her hands to her ears, as if trying to banish the voice from her head. But she couldn't. The call had been recorded. Investigators showed it to voice experts, who confirmed that the voice print was a perfect match to her daughter's. There was no trace of an incoming line, no number, no source, just a scream emanating from a place the phone couldn't identify. The Pacific Ocean, 1944. In the skies above the war, an American fighter jet was struck by anti-aircraft fire. It hurtled like a fireball toward the ocean. Radios on nearby ships began receiving a frantic call. "I'm burning! I can't see! Help! Help!" The naval broadcaster who recorded the signal later said his voice was choked with tears. He could hear the pilot repeating the plea, even after the plane disappeared from radar. Minutes later, all was cut off. The submarine that later located the wreckage confirmed that the pilot's body was charred and mangled from the moment of impact. How could his voice still echo through the waves after he had become nothing but charred flesh? Egypt, 1926. On the Giza Plateau, workers were busy lifting the lid of a massive sarcophagus. Dust filled their nostrils, and sweat poured from their brows. Suddenly, their hands stopped, as a whisper escaped from within, like a breath escaping from a dark pit. One of the workers said the words were disjointed, but one sentence was clear: "Beware my curse. The key is not here." Hearts trembled, and everyone stepped back. The French scholar Georges André recorded the incident in his memoirs, but dared not publish it. 2 days later, one of the workers collapsed, paralyzed and unable to move half his body. A legend spread among the locals that the dead do not remain silent if their sleep is disturbed.
Australia, Melbourne, 1,971 inches, the operating room of St. Vincent's Hospital. Doctors were desperately trying to save a middle-aged man. His heart had stopped. The line on the monitor had flattened. The doctor pronounced him dead. However, the heart monitor continued to record strange noises, like distorted words. After the magnetic resonance imaging was retrieved, the sentence became clear. "Tell Mary I haven't left." The doctors exchanged stunned glances. There were no talking machines or human voices in the room. Even more strangely, Mary wasn't on his medical record, but she was his wife, waiting outside, praying for his return.
Chile, Santiago, 2005. When they buried the little boy, a relative placed a small walkie-talkie in his pocket as a final memento. Night fell slowly, and people returned to their homes. their steps heavy with tears. But at midnight, a signal emanated from the second walkie-talkie in the house. Everyone trembled when they heard the boy's voice crying out, "I'm here! Get me out! It's dark!" They ran to the cemetery and dug with their bare hands before they could use picks. When they reached the coffin, the body was cold and silent, but the walkie-talkie was still working, as if the voice hadn't come from his body but from somewhere deeper, somewhere beyond the grave itself. Moscow, 1,988 inches. The crematorium. They placed an unidentified body inside the metal furnace. The attendant turned the switches. Flames rose like a red monster, devouring the silence. But suddenly, a sharp, wailing sound was heard, followed by a short sentence in Russian, clearly audible over the surveillance microphone. "Death hasn't finished me. Fire won't finish what it started." The attendant fainted. When he awoke, he submitted his resignation, trembling. He kept repeating that the corpse's open eyes continued to stare at him even after the fire had closed the door. From Berlin to Moscow, from the Pacific Ocean to the Giza necropolis, all are scattered threads in one fabric. Sound does not die. It is the only thing that defies the shroud. These sounds may be messages, warnings, screams, or even curses, but what is certain is that they tear down the wall of death and return to us like returning waves. We are the ones who imagine that silence is eternal, while the truth is that silence is nothing but a fragile mask. Behind it are voices that have not tired of speaking and will never tire. If you hear a whisper one day that does not resemble the voices around you, or the ringing of a phone from which a dead voice you know comes out, do not think that it is an illusion. Rather, remember that some shrouds are not tightly closed, and that there are those who did not remain silent. They are still waiting for someone to hear them.